Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is the New York Times best-selling author Brad Meltzer. He is here to celebrate his Ordinary People Change the World series. This is an incredibly powerful interview, and I can't wait to share it with you. But before I do, I want to invite you to be a part of my world tour. That's right. I am determined to travel the world safely via the magic of technology, presenting my brand new show. The magic between us is respect and kindness. At a school near you, no matter where you are in the world, if you are able to download this podcast, then you and the kids that you love will be able to experience this totally interactive show through the magic of technology. We are offering a limited number of schools, classrooms, and even large, extended family groups, a chance to book a free performance of The Magic Between Us is Respect and Kindness. It's a wonderful, wonderful show that I love, and the kids who've experienced it online love as well. You can learn more about it by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Parents Click Here button and scroll down to where it says Live Events. I hope to be seeing you soon. Joining us on the line right now, we are so excited to welcome New York Times best-selling author and the author of Ordinary People Change the World, Brad Meltzer. Brad, how are you? Welcome.
Oh, so good to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. This is a neat series. What inspired you to create this series?
You know, the truth is it was my own kids. I wanted my kids to have better heroes to grow up with. And when I gave my kids, I was tired of them looking at reality TV show stars and people who are famous for being famous and thinking that's a hero. And I thought, I have so many better heroes for them. So I started, I wanted to teach my daughter, she was, 5 or 6 years old at the time, about Amelia Earhart. I said, here's Amelia Earhart. She flew across the Atlantic Ocean. And my daughter said, big deal, Dad. Everyone flies across the Atlantic Ocean these days. She was not impressed at all. But then I told her this true story that when Amelia Earhart was 7 years old, she built a homemade roller coaster in her backyard. She took a wooden crate, she put roller skating wheels on the bottom of it, she shoved it to the roof of her tool shed, put roller skates, as I said, on the bottom, and came flying down these, 2x4s, flew through the air, crashes, gets up, yells, that's amazing, wherever she yells. And my daughter was like, Dad, tell me that story again. And when she heard that story, Amelia Earhart wasn't some black and white figure in a history book. Amelia Earhart was alive again. She was just like her. She was bold and she was daring and she was amazing. And I realized that's the kind of books we want to do. So we started with I'm Amelia Earhart. We did I Am Abraham Lincoln. And they're, as if you can see them, it's hard when you're on a podcast to show people things, but they're illustrated biography, with an art style that looks like kind of Calvin and Hobbes meets Charlie Brown. Is kind of how I describe our amazing artist. And we did I Am Abraham Lincoln. We did I Am Rosa Parks. I Am Albert Einstein. We did My Son Loves Sports. I said, you want to see what a real sports hero looks like? It's not someone who makes millions of dollars. Meet this guy. I Am Jackie Robinson. And for my daughter, I did I Am Lucille Ball because I wanted her to have a female entertainment hero who wasn't just famous for being thin and pretty. Mm-hmm. That Lucy stood for the idea it's okay to be different. It's spectacular to be different, in fact. And we did I Am Helen Keller, where we put real braille into the books. So the pages of the book go black when she goes blind, and then we put real braille into the books. I watched my 18-year-old son, the books are obviously there for younger kids, but even my 18-year-old had his eyes closed, was touching the pages of the book. It says, feel these dots. This is my name. My name's Helen. What's your name? And my 18-year-old was feeling the pages, and he turns back to me when he sees me walk in. He says, Dad, this one's actually good. I'm like, actually? right? So you see how it is in my house. And something amazing happened, though, for us as the 2016 election approached 4 years ago. Two of our books, as Hillary and Donald Trump were fighting each other every day on television, two of our books started selling more than any others.
Wow. And
they were I Am George Washington and I Am Martin Luther King Jr. And it wasn't a Democrat or Republican thing. It was that parents and grandparents on both sides were tired of turning on the TV and seeing politicians, and what they wanted to show their kids were leaders. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. We showed them, our books show leaders. And that's a very important thing. We all know there's a huge difference between leaders and politicians. And that's what we've been doing with the books. We did I Am Walt Disney, I Am Jim Henson, we did I Am Marie Curie to teach science, and it's been really a thrill to bring these heroes to life.
What you said about the difference between leaders and politicians, it is so true. Why don't you think we have those leaders today?
I think the problem is, as a culture, what we've done is we've confused fame with being a hero. I tell my kids all the time, being famous doesn't mean anything. You got to help someone. That's how you're a hero. Let's stop confusing those terms, and we got to stop focusing on the famous and look at those. And we see it right now. Right here we are in the midst of the virus. We finally do realize that those doctors and those nurses who put their lives on the line every day. Same thing after 9/11. We were obsessed with firefighters and policemen in my house. Mm-hmm. But why do we do that only in the moment of crisis? It's because we have to rejigger that. And I really, what I love is that right now we have all these people out there who use our books to build libraries of real heroes for their kids, their grandkids, their nieces, their nephews. Because they agree with what you just said. They want to show their kids that there's something better out there, that you can be a good person as opposed to the fame that we focus on so much today. Yeah.
So very important. And I think that this is hopefully going to give kids hope because, I couldn't blame a kid from sitting around and looking at what's going on in the world these days and kind of throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I don't know if we're going to be able to do better.
Well, listen, that's what led to the newest books we're doing. The newest books that are just coming out, we're doing I Am Benjamin Franklin, but we're doing I Am Anne Frank. Anne Frank, right? The amazing girl who in the midst of the Holocaust finds the one thing we all need today. Hope. Mm-hmm. Hope, right? I mean, think of how vital that is. And in fact, we even wrote, I'll read you a part from it. No one's heard this part yet, but it's, she says, in my life, there were many reasons to be sad and lonely and scared, but there were also many reasons to love and laugh and hope. You can always find light in the darkest places. That's what hope is. It's a fire within you. You decide when to light it, and when it burns bright, nothing can put it out. Now, I need my kids to hear that lesson. Mm-hmm. I need personally to hear that lesson. We need the lessons of Anne Frank today, and if we don't give kids hope, then what are we giving them? So absolutely, I agree with you. That's exactly why our newest book was going for Anne Frank.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this article, but I was absolutely flabbergasted reading an article not too long ago that said this huge percentage of young people in America have no idea of what the Holocaust was and what went on at that time.
I saw that article. It said something like 2/3 of millennials didn't even think it was real. It was heartbreaking. The stats are even worse. If you look at anti-Semitic incidents, mm-hmm. they jumped 12% in the last year alone, the most in any year since the Anti-Defamation League started tracking them 4 decades ago. It's the reason, again, why we did Anne Frank. Say our kids need lessons of resilience and compassion. They need to know what the Holocaust is more than ever so it never happens again.
Absolutely.
So look around. Even in addition to anti-Semitism, the way religious, ethnic, and racial minorities are regularly targeted, mm-hmm. it's impossible to ignore. And I want my kids to see and find strength from Anne Frank's lessons. Mm-hmm. That is vital to me. And if we don't teach it, then we're going to just have even worse results than we have right now.
I agree. I'm so happy that you're introducing kids to Anne Frank and these other heroes. And you also, your book about Benjamin Franklin is also just coming out.
Yeah, so I Am Benjamin Franklin Benjamin Franklin is one of the trickiest ones we ever had to do because he did so much. Everyone knows that he, ran around, fighting lightning, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But that's just part of his inventions. And he was amazing. He figured out, he just had this very curious mind. So one of my favorite stories in there, when he's a little boy, he's swimming. He loves swimming. And he can see that, like, you know, he's like, why do fish move faster than we do? Why do things with paddles and someone in a boat move faster than we do? And he builds out of, I don't know if it's cardboard or whatever he builds it out of. He builds like little kind of oven mitts for himself and puts them on his feet, almost like scuba gear. And suddenly goes way faster. And I love that that's him as a little kid. That's not even him as an adult. That's the story my kids respond to. It's not just seeing these heroes when they're adults, but seeing them when they're little. So seeing Benjamin Franklin when he's a little boy and seeing the experiments he does as a kid. He figures out that he's like, you know, it seems like the darker a color, the more the sun is attracted to it, but he can't figure out how to prove it until he goes into the snow and he puts things that are white in the snow and things that are black in the snow. He sees which melts deeper. He just has that curious mind. But the best thing that Benjamin Franklin is curious about is how to improve himself. And that is the lesson I want my kids to have, is to know that if you want, you know, he used to make a list of all the things he wanted to be. He wanted to be neater. He wanted to be smarter. He wanted to be better. He can't do them all at once. So he would just put one on Monday. I'll do another on Tuesday. I'll do one on Wednesday. And he realizes that if you want to change the world, you got to improve yourself. And I love that lesson for my kids. I love, of course, that he signs the Declaration of Independence and has a hand in writing it and editing it, and the Constitution. He's one of the only people to sign both. You know, he's incredible over and over and over. Invents bifocals, invents, you know, the subscription library, fire brigades, University of Pennsylvania, all these amazing things. But he always is forever curious, and I need my kids to have a curiosity like that. That is an amazing thing to have in your life, and that's a gift you can give your kids. Give the gift of curiosity. Give your kids the gift of imagination.
That is so, I think it's so vital to give our kids permission to be curious. Even before the pandemic, one of the things that we've talked about a lot here in the podcast is how so many kids are bubble wrapped, and the parents love them so much to the point where they don't want them to scrape a knee or strike out. When my kid was young, I was asked to coach a soccer league where they didn't keep score. And, you know, I turned and I said, well, the only ones who aren't keeping score are the adults, because those kids know exactly what the score is.
Oh, my son would keep score every game, 100%. Well, you know what the problem is, but you're exactly right. I mean, one of the things that we do in every one of the books, especially when you see, you know, these books are not books about history. The Ordinary People Change the World series, the I Am series, these are stories about values. They're stories about character. They're stories about resilience. And one of the ways we show it is in every hero book we do, from I Am Abraham Lincoln to I Am George Washington to I Am Walt Disney to I Am Frank and Benjamin Franklin. We show the hero fail. You see failure. You see all the things that don't work. You see Abraham Lincoln lose 8 elections. You see George Washington lose his first election. You see Amelia Earhart's roller coaster break into thousands of pieces. You see all, you know, Amelia Earhart saying, I wasn't the best pilot. I wasn't. I was just worked harder than anyone else. Every time people, you know, because what you see these stories, the mistake we make with our heroes in America today is we build these great statues, these monuments of our heroes, and we carve them out of granite and marble and all these other things. And we go and we build these monuments and we worship at their feet. And we do the heroes a huge disservice when we do that. Because anyone you look up to, whether it's Rosa Parks or Dr. King or Benjamin Franklin or Anne Frank, everyone you look up to had moments where they were scared and they were terrified and they didn't know that they could go on. But they do. They push forward. And when you teach your kids that Benjamin Franklin failed, when you teach your kids that Anne Frank was scared, and you teach them that Abraham Lincoln did lose, and so did George Washington, Dr. King, and Amelia Earhart, and Rosa Parks, when you teach them that, then these aren't the stories of famous people. This is what we're all capable of on our very best days.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm hoping, too, that as kids they're understanding that these famous people, you know, throughout history made mistakes. I'm hoping that our society can become a little bit more forgiving. It's a hard time.
Oh my God,
to be
do we need that? I mean, that, you know, the problem what we do with our society today is everything's black and white. You're a good person, you're a bad person. You did something wrong, forget it, you're done forever. I remember this quote that really got to me a number of years ago. I read, and it said, none of us are who we are on our very worst day. And we've all had that moment where we just have not behaved the way we could. And obviously there are things that go beyond that, and there are bright lines, of course, but sure. It is amazing to me how we wring our hands and want our kids to be more forgiving. But if we don't teach them how to do it, what are we to expect? Mm-hmm. And it's really, really sad. I was, especially when you look at social media, I was reading this study a little bit ago, and it said that, when we were younger, that what our parents used to teach us was that being smart was important. That's what the older generations were taught. You got to be smart. You got to be smart. But the newer generations, our kids now, and not that we're choosing to teach this, but this is what they're learning. That the priority has shifted. Mm-hmm. With the rise of social media, what we're teaching our kids is that it's important to be popular. Mm-hmm. That's what posting something and looking at how many likes you get, or how many subscribers you have, or how many friends you have on a social media platform. It reinforces to your kids, whether you like it or not, that forget about smart, it's important to be popular. Right. It's important to be liked. And that is a disservice we're doing our children. So our I Am books, the Ordinary People Change the World books, are there as an antidote to that. Yeah. We want to be that thing that you can give your kids instead. And listen, I want my kids off their screens. I want my kids off their devices and off their phones. The only way to get them to do that is if you give them something better. Mm-hmm. And it's why we have that secret weapon, Chris Eliopoulos, our amazing artist, who, as I said, his style is like Charlie Brown meets Calvin and Hobbes, and kids see his version of Ben Franklin. They see his little kid version of Anne Frank, his little kid version of Abraham Lincoln, and they're like, oh my God, I want that. Mm-hmm. And that's been our secret weapon.
Yeah. I love how Chris draws Benjamin Franklin as a 10-year-old, but as a 10-year-old with the receding hairline.
Yeah, so we always keep our heroes throughout the whole book. No matter how old they get, they always look like a 10-year-old. Mm-hmm. Benjamin Franklin always looks like a little kid, no matter what he accomplishes, even when he's working on the Declaration of Independence. And when we did our first book, the publisher said, you know what, I don't like that. Can you make, our first book was I Am Amelia Earhart. So she said, can you make Amelia Earhart older? I said, sure, we can do that easy. I said, but it's going to be bad. They said, well, just try it. And sure enough, as Amelia Earhart got older, Chris drew her older, and kids looked at it, and they hated it because it was boring. It was about some old lady. But when she was drawn like a 5 to 10-year-old, kids were like, oh, she's just like me. Yeah. And that was always the point, is that kids see themselves. And as long as kids see themselves, the story is always 100% true. We exaggerate nothing. These are nonfiction books. They tell the stories as true as any history book out there. Our I Am Jim Henson book, it said this is as good a biography as Jim Henson has ever had, adult or kids books. We take our subject matter very seriously, but the reason that kids love these books and they want libraries of them is because Chris keeps drawing them like kids. Yeah. And so kids can look at them and say, that's me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, Brad, was there anybody that surprised you as you were doing research and writing the series? Did any of these ordinary people surprise you?
Every single one. Every single person I do. I'm like, oh, I know about Abraham Lincoln. I know about George Washington. I'm like, I found this story about Abraham Lincoln, that when Abraham Lincoln was 10 years old, he came upon a group of boys, and they were playing with turtles. And Abraham Lincoln, as a boy, loved animals, so he races over to see these boys playing with these turtles. But what they're doing is they're not playing with the turtles. They're putting hot coals on the backs of the turtles to make them run faster, torturing the turtles. And Abraham Lincoln, in that moment, 10 years old, is horrified, doesn't know what to do. And I don't care if you're 10 years old or you're 50 years old. Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing, but someone has to. And Abraham Lincoln in that moment is like, take the coal off the turtles. And I can tell you that my youngest still loves Abraham Lincoln, not because he freed the slaves or was the 16th president, but he loves him because he understands what it's like to be nice and to stand up to a bully who's harming a creature like that. That is an incredible moment, and kids understand it, and that totally knocked me on my butt, because I was, like everyone else, we know about the Emancipation Proclamation, we know about Abraham Lincoln, as the guy who sits in that big chair in the Lincoln Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
But to hear that human story, that's what blows me away.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I wish we did more of this, teaching kids with introducing them, as you are doing with this series, introducing them to ordinary people who find ways to do extraordinary things. This is just a wonderful series. And if there was any, obviously, I Am Anne Frank and I Am Benjamin Franklin, they're the latest books. Do you have a favorite? I know it's unfair to ask you if you have a favorite, but do you have a favorite out of the series?
My three favorites, I'll tell you. I love the I Am Abraham Lincoln book for the reason I just told you. I love the Anne Frank book, and maybe the most important book we've ever done. And I will also say that I love our books on I Am Jim Henson and I Am Walt Disney, because those are the books I did for my creative one, my youngest who loves Lego and drawing and being creative. And when I was 5 years old myself, people like Jim Henson and Mr. Rogers and Walt Disney taught me that you could use your creativity to put good into the world. And that's all I'm trying to do here today, is use my creativity to put good into this world. When you read I Am Walt Disney, you see that his first business was a failure. He went ahead, told me he was going to have to declare bankruptcy. He was sleeping in a bus station, showering there. It was a failure. The first Mickey cartoon didn't sell, but if you don't teach your kids that when you get knocked down, you got to get back up again, and that failure's okay, you're going to come back from it. That's how you teach your kids to fly. That's what I Am Walt Disney is about. So I love that these books still let me just try to use my creativity to put good into the world.
This is wonderful. You've written bestsellers for adults. You're involved in producing television shows. Do you have a favorite? And you have so much passion about this particular series. Is this always been a passion of yours to write for kids?
I'll be honest, I didn't know until I had kids. I just love telling stories in whatever format is the best to tell that story. So, yes, I write thrillers for adults and nonfiction for adults because I'm, as an adult, I write for myself. When I had kids, I was like, I had a new audience, and I was like, I want to inspire them. So, of course, that becomes the passion project. The Ordinary People Change the World books are my soul in book form, and I'm super passionate, as you can tell, about that. I love the fact that I get to do comic books and write Superman and Batman. I love the fact that we do Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum as a TV show of our kids' books on PBS Kids. I love all these are, though, is they have one thing in common, whether I'm writing for adults or for kids, cartoons or comics or these illustrated children's books, is I just love a good story. I love a good story, because to me, stories aren't what did happen. Stories are what could happen. And I think for all of us, especially these days, we all need a little bit of that kick in the butt to remind us what can happen if we dream big enough.
I love that. And that's a great place to end. Before we do say goodbye, Brad, tell everybody where they can find out more, if they don't know already, where they can find out more about you and all the books that you're bringing into the world.
Oh, you're very kind. So you can go to bradmeltzer.com, or you can, of course, go to ordinarypeoplechangetheworld.com. The books are available at every bookstore, from Amazon to Barnes & Noble to Books A Million, to all the wonderful, beautiful independents out there who have, really need your help right now. So consider doing that. And the one thing, listen, I love when people buy the books. I love when they buy the books and build libraries for their kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews. But what I really hope with this one, if I can just say it, is with I Am Anne Frank, consider buying a book and donating it. Keep one for yourself, but buy one for a synagogue, for a church, for a school, some place that needs a little hope right now. Even if it's a hospital, even if it's a kid's room in a hospital, but buy a copy and drop it off to someone who needs some hope right now. It is what we need in the world right now, is a little bit more of Anne Frank's hopefulness, because, it is like a shining bright light, and my God, we need that right now.
Absolutely. We've had a really, really wonderful time speaking with the author of the brand new books, I Am Anne Frank and I Am Benjamin Franklin, Brad Meltzer. Brad, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Oh, what a pleasure.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Joanna Pastro. She'll be here to celebrate a damsel not in distress. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, You may be looking for creative ways to help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. We have a program that you should check out. It's called the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Program, and so many authors love this program. It really has been a big benefit. Lori Olinsky is a 2-time Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read author. She's a background in marketing and publicity, and she thinks that this program is wonderful. She says that it gives her more confidence when she is going out approaching bookstores, approaching schools to book either a live or a virtual school visit. She even says it helps her when she's approaching newspapers and other podcasters. Check it out today. Go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on the author click here button at the top of the page, and you'll be able to scroll down to the Certified Great Read page. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, Brad Meltzer. Be sure to check out the Ordinary People Change the World series. And like Brad says, especially check out I Am Anne Frank. Also want to thank my team, starting with my amazing daughter, Alejandra Doherty, my producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.